Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Welcome back to the SG Performance YouTube channel. Today, we got an amazing video for y'all. Today, we have this S197 Mustang with the Gen 1 Coyote, and we're going to be installing a full Pypes exhaust kit, going from long tubes to the X pipe, to mid pipes, over pipes, to pipes, like the entire thing, Pypes exhaust, going from the motor all the way to the tailpipes. It's gonna be amazing. So make sure you stick around. We're gonna go over every little detail you need to know, the headaches, the ups, the downs, the headaches, you know, the drama, what you need to be looking out for if you install a kit just like this one, so that you don't get stuck and we can take, you know, the headaches for you, and then you can learn from what we learn. So make sure you stick around. I hope you all enjoy the video, and let's get right into it. So quickly, I think the kind of main goal for this one is just we're just going to start on this driver's side. Normally, you know, the general is, you know, do the hard side first, but really, I don't feel like doing that. So the first step, we're going to go ahead and remove this strut bar, because we're going to have to go up with the motor so we can have as much room as possible, and then remove this entire intake, lift the car up, get the cherry picker over here, and really just get everything set up so that we can remove the motor mounts and then start removing this exhaust. Alrighty, so now we get the car in jack stands, so moving in the right direction. Already have the cherry picker in, so right now we're working at the top, starting with that top bolt, and then there's these two side bolts, and then once that motor mount's off, then you just gotta fight this actual plate down here itself, and then the fun begins of just getting all these little bolts. Luckily for this side, you're able to just, you know, remove the steering linkage, drop it down, pull it out. But the other side, on the passenger side, you kind of got to do a bit more on trying to remove some studs while you come on with it, just to gain the clearance.
2,000 years later.
Well, nice little time jump real quick. So to give you all an update so far, so ended up, I did loosen the two bolts for this mount right here, but really, I mean, you really don't need to take it off. You really only need to take off this plate down here. So basically it's that top bolt I was talking about earlier. There's 4 bolts on it, it comes right out. And so we already got the old headers out. I do have these ones snake through. Now you can kind of see past it a little bit. There is a torsion bar that kind of goes across the bottom underneath the tranny. I did remove that as to give myself a little bit of extra clearance, because these Pypes long tubes are like extra long. So since I'm working on jack stands, I couldn't quite get it up high enough off the ground. One thing to note is you do want to go ahead and get the actual steering linkage for the column out of the way as well. You're going to need to do that to remove them and install them. Now for these Pypes ones and the size of them, I am running into clearance issues, so I'm removing all the studs but this one right here, just to kind of give myself as much clearance as possible, so that I can get these things to sit flush against the head. And then I'll use the included hardware to get a few bolts in to at least hold it in place, and then we'll start slowly working it down from there. Alrighty, so as you can see, the headers are now mostly in. I only have really 2 bolts right now holding it in place, just because we did run into a dilemma. So on some S197s, but mainly the S550s, you're actually able to, when you lift the motor up to get the headers out, you can put them back in perfectly fine and mount them back up. And it may just be these Pypes headers specifically, I'm not too sure. But for these ones at least, you're going to want to obviously lift the motor up to get the headers out, the motor mounts out, and get them back in. But once you do that and you get the headers back in, you're going to have to go back down to actually be able to get them flush. Because if not, the curve down there by the collector, it's actually going to hit on the undercarriage of the body. So we want to make sure that we lower it back down. And then once we get them bolted in, we have about, I would say, probably 2 inch, probably I would say actually just an inch from the factory resting area to be able to snake the mount back in. But a good little tip is this thing doesn't need to come out, but I would go ahead and make sure you just undo these both these bolts, because we do want to have there's a little bit of wiggle room. That'll help us get the mount bracket on the motor side back in properly. And so I just got to get all the bolts in. We'll get the mount back in, get the little steering shaft down there, put back in as well, making sure we keep the wheel alignment, and then we'll be able to move on to the next side.
All right, to the person watching this video, I got a question. Why are you not subscribed? We build really cool stuff. We swap stuff that shouldn't be in it. We have a SEMA truck that's going to SEMA this year, and you're still not subscribed? Dang, I thought you liked cool cars, man.
And just like that, as you can see, the driver's side, we are completely done. The mount is back down. Everything's tight as well down here. And these things look freaking awesome. So moving on, we now are on to the passenger side, which for those who've done Mustang headers before, you know that at least on these 5.0s, or I can't talk about the other Mustangs out there, but at least on these 5.0s, the passenger side is definitely harder. That side, you have quite a bit of room between the strut tower and the valve cover to reach your hand around, but since with these extra lines, you really don't have nearly as much room. But for this one, I found it easiest for at least this S197. If you have a semi-deep socket, I used the top knot of 15 mil. I was able to get an icon socket on there, which is deeper than, say, you know, some Husky sockets or other stuff that I have. That was able to just be deep enough while being a shallow socket to be able to grab the nut over the stud that it sits on. So we're going to start with this side. The first thing we want to do now that the motor's actually up is this side. There's a bit more we have to do to kind of get started. So as you can see under here, we have a lot less room to work with. So we do have this one transline bracket right here on the bell housing. We're going to take the nut off so we can get that off the stud. There's one on the motor mount side, and then what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to, now that you can see it, we're going to have to remove the starter on this side as well. So the starter, the motor mount plate, and some transcooler line brackets have to be moved out of the way before we can even start working on the headers. And then once we do that, we'll basically pull these ones out, put the new ones in, and kind of do everything in reverse order. Alrighty, so got some more work put in, and as you can see, if I can even get a good angle, the headers on this side at least are out. So we're moving in the right direction, but did have to take a quick hiatus to fix a mistake on my end. So to give you all a heads up, the motor mount sits this way, and you can see pretty much all of these 3 bolts, and then this one is a bit hidden, but on this has a kind of the bolt stud combo, as I think a lot of us mechanics are used to. But it looks like this, where the nut itself, if I don't drop it, if the nut itself right here is a 13, but the nut that goes on this started portion is a 15, and in between sits a pesky little ground wire that is just about the exact same size as these threads, so it can be a big pain to get off. But a few handy things to do is towards the front of the car right here, there will be, as you can kind of see the line going to it, the AC compressor. On the front side facing towards transmission and the side, there are a total of 3 bolts, 1 up front, 2 on the side. That'll help give some slack to the harness, allowing you to basically pull the harness up and get some slack on this guy. But be careful like me, as I got the slack and, you know, it's still tight, so I decided to try to wiggle it off, and I don't have the piece. Scratch that, I did find it. So you can see on here how here's a normal ground wire and the actual O-ring or D-ring or whatever you want to call it, the actual ring of the ground completely broke off as I was trying to take it off. So what I had to do is just cut this part off, re-stripped it, re-spliced it, and I went ahead, and if for some reason this happens to you, I went ahead and just literally have to get these right here. Just went to O'Reilly's, got some battery cable lugs, and then I got it in a vise and I bent this a little bit to give it a 90 going this way, so I'll be able to actually, you know, get back up into place properly and bolt it down. And these ones have the 3/8 eye hole, which is the perfect size for that stud. So we're going to continue on. We're going to get these headers slid into place now and then start throwing everything back together. After that, we get to go to this big box over here and finish out the entire exhaust from these headers all the way out the back of this Mustang. All right, so the Mustang is done. Now, I know probably none of y'all wanted to see it cut like this, but there is some good explanation. So the install of the rest of the exhaust went decently well. The catted X pipe bolts on beautifully. The over pipes slide right in, and the tips clamp on nice. But the mid pipe section is where we have some issues. Now the mid pipe section with the muffler and the mid pipe, I don't know if it was just ours, the kit we got, but for some reason it just would not clamp up right. And the mid pipe itself, without the muffler, goes from a 3-inch to a 2.5 and downsizes for a reason I'm not sure. And even with research on the exact, kit and how Pypes says to install it, it just doesn't make sense. So we ended up taking the time to just weld that section of the exhaust in. So it's not, it's not as clamp on as it's supposed to be, but it does work and it does sound nice. So I did forget to film an actual before. So enjoy before of a random S197 Mustang with a Gen 1 Coyote, and then we'll get to listening to how amazing this thing sounds, because other than the hiccups, I do recommend this exhaust because it is the perfect balance between tone and volume, and it does sound absolutely amazing.
All right, thank you guys for watching the video of the installation on the Mustang headers. So that was the Pypes kit from, I think it was like American Muscle or something like that. It did go in. It was kind of a pain in the butt. The long tube headers are really long. The kit didn't fit up real well, so we had to take it to an exhaust shop. They custom cut it, welded it to make it all work. But if you guys are going to do this in your driveway, I highly recommend you do not, because either we got the wrong kit and we just had to make it work, or it was just a bad fitting kit. I don't know what the problem was, but I hope you guys enjoyed that video. It did sound pretty good. It does give a nice little balance between super loud and super quiet. The drone wasn't bad at all. So I hope you guys did enjoy that video, and I'll see y'all in the next one.